how can you learn if you're hungry? How can you learn if you haven't slept? How can you learn if your family needs more support? Like, and you're living in a state of chaos. Like, you can't. Your brain can't do it. We need to go back to the very beginning. And as a teacher, you don't really have the ability to, and the resources and capacity to go back to the very beginning.
Welcome to Deconstructing Therapy, transforming therapy and the therapists who lead it. Let's deep dive into conversations, reshaping therapy into a powerful tool for healing, liberation, and systemic change. Join us as we challenge the status quo, reimagine care, and celebrate therapists breaking barriers. Let's transform therapy together. Alix Smith is a licensed professional counselor in New Orleans specializing in trauma-informed, culturally relevant, and attachment-based approaches. Alix integrates EMDR, emotionally focused therapy, mindfulness, and play therapy to empower her clients. Beyond her therapeutic practice, Alix is deeply committed to fostering equity and inclusivity within the counseling profession and the community she serves.
I am so honored to be here. I'm so excited to be here.
I know we all have a lot of conversations in our peer group. We're part of the same peer group. We're part of the same community, emotionally focused therapy community. And there's often so many conversations that we're always having about what we thought therapy was going to be like, what we thought we were going to do when we got to practice, and then what really happens. And a lot of my podcast is about that story for therapists of, this is how I had to shift and change as the realities of life kind of hit me. So I was curious a little bit more about your end of that. Like, what got you into counseling in the first place?
Where to begin, right? Like, I think when I was in middle school, I had like an inkling that it would be really cool to be a school counselor. And um, my parents kind of shut it down and were like, you're not going to grad school, just like go get your degree and get into the workforce. But I ended up doing Teach for America after I graduated from college. And it really, that is the hardest job in the world, first of all. And there were just so many parts of it that were extremely difficult. And I found myself most excited by the times when I was just working one on one with a kid or one on one with a family. There were also a lot of moments where I could see that kids needed more support to be able to be successful in the classroom and like more holistic support. And it was support that I didn't have the capacity to provide as a teacher. So after 4 years of teaching, I was actually in a program to be a principal. I felt like after 3 years of teaching, I knew everything I needed to know and was ready to be in administration. Oh, yeah, I was in my young 20s, as you may have guessed, and ended up dropping out of my principalship program and getting into a school counselor program. So that was how I sort of pivoted into that career.
Oh, I had no idea you were a teacher at first. Oh, well, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. I can see that. And I hear that from so many teachers of when you get into the field and you see how handicapped you are by the system
Yeah.
and you want to help the kids and you really can't even get to the point of educating them because there's so many barriers of behavior, then family, then
Right.
systemic resources are limited. And it's just
Yeah.
really understand that struggle.
Yeah. That really hit me. Like, how can you learn if you're hungry? How can you learn if you haven't slept? How can you learn if your family needs more support? Like, and you're living in a state of chaos. Like, you can't. Your brain can't do it. We need to go back to the very beginning. And as a teacher, you don't really have the ability to, and the resources and capacity to go back to the very beginning. Like, you're asking other people to help families go back to the very beginning. And I wanted more of a hand in that.
I really commend you for you're on this track already. You're ready to be a principal. You could have gone into administration, and you said no. I'm so pulled.
I don't think I have the personality, yeah, to be an administrator. Thank you, though. Yeah, but I felt like everything really worked out the way it was supposed to. Like, and that was the thing. I went into grad school and was so excited. Like, this is the information that I want. Like, I've literally knew that I wanted to be a counselor since I was 12. Like, I am so excited. I am ready to like merge all of my knowledge about education with therapy, and really try to make a difference. So I was just like so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at the beginning and really excited to, I really felt like I can help dismantle the school to prison pipeline. Like I really thought I could do it all, and like learned a lot along the way. It's been a really, really humbling journey. And I think we can also just name up front, like my own, that this was my own way of processing my own white guilt and like my own like martyrdom that I was going to go and like, make things right. But yeah, that's where I was at 25, was trying to
Um,
figure it out. Yeah.
and I'm hearing two parts of this story. So it's like I love the passion. And even when you're on one track and doing well on that track, it's very easy to just kind of be complacent, be in the system, and kind of even just get burnt out, but stay there instead of changing course. So I love the passion you had of, no, I'm really here to make a difference. And if there's another avenue to do that, even if it means going back to school and doing something different and returning back to your roots of, I wanted to do this as 12. I knew what my heart wanted to do, and you return back to that. So I love that part of the story.
What I'll say too is that I really wasn't complacent. Like my first 3 years teaching in Kentucky, I loved my community. I loved my students. Like we clicked, but I could feel the rub of teaching, and I will say that in Appalachia, Kentucky, the majority of my students were all white. And because there were race riots in the 1950s that literally drove Black people out of town. So I taught a very homogenous group. I didn't have to do a lot of like, I was doing that work because I'm interested in it, but I wasn't really having to like grapple with like the sort of meta perspective you have to have as a helper of like, how is my identity brushing up against this other person's identity in this moment? And like, in what ways am I perpetuating systemic racism? I wasn't doing that kind of calculus because all of my students were white. I was doing it in a different way, like in a cultural way, but I think it's different when all of your kids are white and you're a white person.
Yeah, you weren't even confronted with that.
I really wasn't. And so when I moved to Virginia to do my principalship program, my students were very integrated. There was one county school and it was still a rural population, but it's very, very different than Kentucky. And so I just remember having these moments of like interacting with kids and having it just not go well, despite my best efforts, and being like, what just happened? Or like a day when I had referrals on my desk and every single referral was for a Black student. I was like, oh my gosh, like what is happening here? This is not good. And I saw this as like, of course, this is like a systemic issue, but was like, I am alarmed by this. I'm distressed by this. And I didn't really have a place to go to talk to in terms of talking to other teachers about this kind of thing. I just didn't really feel like there was a place to just process this with other teachers. And I was also noticing all of these other like larger issues. There are such high expectations for kids who need way more support than they're getting.
So when you got those referrals on your desk and you're saying, oh my goodness, they're all Black students, everything's integrated in this different way that I haven't worked on. How did that start landing in your system? How did you start making sense of that in your head?
It was like deeply shameful. And I think growing up abroad, I grew up in Singapore, which was a place that was actively colonized. This concept wasn't new to me of racism and colonization and like white privilege. And it was something that I could feel when I was living in Singapore and the way that people talked to me and how I was treated versus like how people from Singapore were treated. So it wasn't new. And I think I got to maybe see like the United States and like racial history as an outsider and like, oh, I didn't do this. Like, I'm not a part of this. And
Mm.
I think that was a really shattering moment for me because it's like, no, you are a part of it. You are a part of it, and you have breathed in the smog, and you're in it, and you got to figure it out. It felt so deeply shameful. It felt so painful and so shameful to see those referrals on my desk or to have students I really loved that I felt like, gosh, I just can't connect with you, and I almost feel like I want you to have a different teacher.
That's a big moment. No, you're in it. This is you too. This is an awakening. I was always aware of these issues. I always was pulled into that justice for it and wanted to do better. but I saw myself as outside of the system. And that was awakening of, oh, I'm in this. I have, and then the shame hit you, and it's like, I want to remove myself completely, and I want somebody else to take over. Yeah. Where did you go from there? And how did your instincts tell you, I can't go to the other teachers with this?
When I tried to go to other teachers, you know, I will say, like, I had two different teaching communities. And so my first one, like at the local school, was like when I tried to talk to people about that, it was like, oh, like you think you're racist? And it's like, I feel like it's like that elephant in the room, right? Of like, we pretend like it's not there. And if we actually just did the work of saying, like, hey, like, we're all raised, you know, despite our best efforts, we're all raised with this smog, it's what we're breathing in. I think that we would be in a much better place than it's like talking about some kind of like disease that you catch. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, we are all, despite your best efforts, we are all raised in this smog. There's no
right.
way for it not to touch you.
Right. And so yeah. And so like, I don't think there was really a way for me to talk to teachers in school. Like, I think I like edged on the conversation, didn't quite land, and, you know, really went to my like Teacher America kind of professional community because we all talk that same kind of like language. We've had to do multicultural training. And I think that Alefyah, like I just got to the point where it's like, I just need more education here. Like I wasn't a traditionally taught teacher. Like I had an accelerated program. We could go on and on about, you know, the deficits in that, but like I just needed to resource myself. I know that it would take a lot of work for me to be the teacher that I want to be. And I just don't feel the passion for it, and really felt this really strong pull in a different direction, and a feeling like my skills would be better utilized in the therapeutic setting. So it was kind of just like a coming to a head. And I knew I picked my counseling program on one that was very social justice based. And I knew that we were going to be able to have those conversations because I was just like very hungry to dig in. It was hard at the time to find spaces where like that was something that was really being emphasized.
So, did you always have this pull for social justice, and then that experience in Virginia kind of really amplified it, made you realize how you're in it too?
I actually don't know. Like I've always loved helping people. Even when I was little was a really fun way for me to kind of escape things that were hurting me or impacting me. Like I could just jump into someone else's world, and everything that was going on just melted away. And I really used that in college too. Like I think I had anxiety and had depression before I had words for those things, and that was just always like my escape. You know, I like volunteered in the education system. I went to college in Virginia too. So went to volunteer in the education system and was noticing all of these just like disparities between the education I received and the education that my kids were receiving. Just like working with folks with disabilities, just noticing like the level of care that they were receiving was really concerning to me. Like, there's just got to be a better way to do this. Like, these systems are not serving people in like a kind and loving way.
And since a young age, you always had that vision of kind of seeing the systems, and it sounds like part of your own being experiencing some of that loneliness or that depression, that some of that trauma early on, so you were able to connect with other people.
I hope so. I think so. Yeah.
And then I can see the evolution of it too, of like, I'm really pulled to change this. I'm really seeing
Yeah.
this with a lot of clarity. And then, oh, wait, I'm part of this too. How did you grapple with that shame? What I, again, like about your stories, the shame didn't paralyze you.
Oh my gosh. It was really hard. But I just remember this one moment at school where I had a conversation with a student that didn't go well, and I ended up sending him out of the classroom, and he called me a racist, and I excused myself. I had another teacher cover my class, and I went into the bathroom and I was like hyperventilating, sobbing, and was like, you know what people do when they're really upset? They punch walls. And I was like, maybe I'll try it and it'll make me feel better. I mean, I was like having a panic attack. Okay. I punched a wall and almost broke my hand, and it was like so swollen. It was purple. I think I ended up getting a boxer's fracture. Like they had to send me home. I was like It's time for me to do some things that are like I have to do something different. Like this is gonna eat me alive. I can't go around like punching walls. You know what I mean? We have to figure it out.
So this was a very distinct big moment where that hit you. What was that anger saying? If you could give it a voice, what do you think it was saying?
Gosh, I'm like gonna cry thinking about it. I was just so frustrated having so much responsibility, like an impossible amount of responsibility with so little power, I think, or just like so little knowledge and like words for what was happening. Just like I desperately wanted things to be different and didn't know how, like systemically, like for my students, like for me, and didn't know how to change it.
So that anger was speaking out against the powerless. It's like I don't have a voice. I already see this stuff, and now it's really explicit, coming to a head. I'm being called racist. I see how big this is. I felt it this whole time, and I there's no room for my voice or my power here. So it kind of just all poured out into that wall.
How could, despite my best efforts, have I done damage? Like, you don't get into this field because I don't know, no one wants to hurt. I did not want to hurt anyone. It was like, do no harm felt like the number one most important thing to me, like as a professional and also as a human being. And like what I heard that child saying was like, you hurt me. You hurt me. You have been hurting me. And it was like, how did this happen? Like, I've been trying so hard. I've thought about every single moment, fixated almost on how am I interacting with this student versus this student, like digging into data, like doing continuing education. And it's like, wow, still,
Still, because the system is so big,
yeah,
everything is working against you. Like you said, it's this is smog that we're breathing in all the time.
right.
But I love that you were able to just instantly hear it as, oh my God, I've hurt this child. I can see how the system's hurting them. I feel powerless in it. I need to take a break with it. And there was no, I guess there was no pushback. There was no defensiveness. You kind of really were able to feel the reality of that moment.
Like, even in those moments when I was like reflecting on the incident and like I really felt like I didn't antagonize this person, this student, like I really felt like knowing him and knowing his story, he was failed so many times in so many different ways. And to truly be a good teacher to him, there was so much more than I needed to do and that I needed to understand about the system and how it worked and like really advocated for him and like I didn't do those things. So yeah, like I was complicit. And
Right.
regardless of like any advocacy I did do, we still have these like horrific systems that fail families and fail children. Like he was involved in the juvenile justice system. He had been involved in the foster system and like there was just yeah.
Yeah, it's just set up to fail. And I can hear your heart even for him right now
Yeah.
talking about him. You really have
Yeah.
so much empathy for him and really are seeing him in context, in his full context. That's really beautiful to hear. But what I also love about your story is that that word racist doesn't have that insane amount of power that I see in a lot of situations where it just disarms people, it paralyzes people. They hear that word and they just want to say, no, I need to use all my resources to just prove that I'm not this word that has become this monstrous thing. Like your ability to just say, yes, I'm complicit. Yes, we all have this. It takes the power away from that to paralyze everything and to just acknowledge it. Now, what do we do about it? It lets you move into that space.
Yeah, like, if that word holds that much power, then like I think that that's kind of a cognitive exit, Alethea. I really do. I think that it is a way for people to get out of like the shame and pain of it than to not do anything to address it. And so I think like what I really wanted to do as like my kind of way to repair, I never got repair with that kid. I never got repair with him. And to be fair, I don't think that he felt safe enough repairing with me. And so, and I, like I wasn't going to like push that at all. But I never got repair with that kid. So the way that I've always repaired moving forward as an adult has been like, I am just going to eat it. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to feel the pain and I'm going to figure out what to do next. What's the next right thing to do here? If I let it freeze me, I don't do anything. I don't do anything for that kid.
Wow. Oh, I just love your fight, the fight that's in you. And it seems like it's been there forever in your spirit. That's it. It's driven by that. That's wonderful. Can you speak a little bit more to that's a cognitive exit, or I strive not to do that? How about that?
I try to just, if there's something that's happened and I sense that I've hurt someone or I've missed something, then I try to just slow down and really think about what happened and really think about the impact, like not necessarily my intentions about what I meant to say or what I meant to do, but what the impact was, what the impact could be, maybe even beyond my imagination, and really try to own that part in an attuned way. And I think also if something like if something, I can think of a time where that has happened in like a group, really own it for the group and model for the group. I have done this thing. This is what I said. This is what I fear my impact was. And this is what I'm willing and able to do to make it right. And let me know if there's something else that can be done for me to fix it and repair. You tell, like, I will do the cognitive work, but if there is something else that's on your heart that like I can do to repair with you, please let me know. And it's so tricky, but
You can feel it for a moment, but you don't get stuck there, and you don't use it as an exit to make yourself feel better. It's like, okay, this happened, this is real, I'm going to jump to see what the impact is and how can we make this better.
and as someone who's a natural withdrawer, I will say this experience is pretty searing. Like conflict has not ever really felt safe for me. So that process of being like, we're going to talk about things that we're going to face it head on. I mean, that is very, very difficult, but it's like, game face on, shield on. Like it just like we have to be brave.
And so this is a big shift for you because you do it so beautifully. I just, the humility in it, the ability to tolerate your own shame, the ability to not want to defend yourself and just say, no, wait, this is real. I'm going to own it. I'm going to see my part in it and I'm going to come after this and make this right. That's very commendable. And also the fact that you didn't have that historically. You didn't even have that modeled for you.
It is really, I mean, repair is really painful. Like we lead clients into that all the time, but like to do it for yourself, to really take ownership for your impact, to feel in your body what someone else has felt in their body as a result of your behavior, and then to make a plan for how that's never going to happen again. Like that is repair. That is our focus, especially as EFT clinicians, right? But it is so hard for us to do on our own. And I think too, like we live in a very segregated society. And if you're not spending time in, diverse groups of people, then you're out of practice in having to do this. Like you can live in your bubble and not realize that some of the things that you're saying are not okay.
So that's what it makes that racial injury maybe heavier. You're not used to confronting those spaces. And like you said earlier, my culture bumping up against somebody else's culture. I don't have the reps for that. I don't have the practice with that. So then if it hits me out of nowhere, it is going to be more paralyzing. It is going to feel deeper. And you might hit those cognitive exits to deal with the distress of it.
Let's pause. I mean, I love the way like Catherine Ream does it in the EFT cafe, like where she has, whenever someone brings a case, she always has folks like bring the cultural identity and like of different markers into the consultation, and like also having a moment to talk about how the therapist perceives those attributes, how it like comes up in session, how they interact with those pieces of identity and honor those pieces of identity. Like if we just took a moment, I think that it would really build the muscle memory for people to be able to handle the rupture and repair that's naturally going to happen, especially when you are a white person, and you've taken an extra hit of that smog, and like there is stuff that you're not going to see. There are things that you're going to say that are hurtful. There are mistakes that you're going to make. It's just going to happen. You're not going to catch everything.
Yeah. And so just to really normalize it. We're all in the smog. You've taken an extra hit if you're part of the dominant culture, and just it's going to happen. Just be ready for and be prepared for what to do when it does. Um, I wanted to shift gears a little bit to how did this evolve for you, even in your therapy practice?
So I went through grad school, and it, continued to be a passion point for me. And I had a lot of professors who really invested in me and supported me in that, in that passion. Like I did, I got to work with Dr. Blair Chalawa at UVA and do work on disparate outcomes of discipline, and just got to really see like how exclusionary practices impacted students, and like also looking at severity of punishment based on infraction for students, like, and just really seeing, and this data set like broke down income levels and saw that even like for the wealthiest Black children, that they were very much punished more severely, and that the results of that exclusion was more severe than on white children. It like created a steeper hill for them to climb educationally if they were excluded. That's, you know, in school suspension and out of school suspension, which is a common practice, which is a whole other wormhole that we could go down that I'm trying to like re-steer my brain. Yeah, but got
I can't imagine the stuff that you've had to experience and witness in the school system.
I don't even know that I have words for it. And again, despite people's best efforts sometimes, but I, you know, got to really foster like this passion and like dive really deeply into some of these issues that were a continuation of the things that I was just chewing on during my experience as a teacher. And I got to the end of my program and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna move. I was kind of ready for a change. And I moved down to New Orleans to be a school counselor. And my goal was I wanted to help create a trauma-informed school. And my dream was like, if we created schools that were truly trauma-informed, then like we could help break the school to prison pipeline and remove the need for exclusionary discipline. And I just was so excited about this. And again, you can hear the arrogance, right? And like this vision
Well,
of like, I'm
I
gonna
hear the
do it.
passion.
I'm gonna
I
do
hear.
it. I came down and started in my first school and was just like floored by, I mean, both the resilience I saw in my students and families and also the level of trauma. I did not live in the United States when Katrina happened. I did not know a ton about Katrina, which also like I should have done more reading and research about the impact of Katrina on the city of New Orleans. But every time it rained, kids were hurting. And it was like you could just feel the scar of Katrina. And it was like I started in 2017, over a decade after Katrina had happened, and was just like, there is so much I have to learn. There is so much that I have to get good at in order to be a good clinician. And I think that my approach, because I was so scared of hurting anyone, was just to give as much as I could and to just assume the absolute best. I would drive kids, I would go pick kids up from home. And it was very, I mean, Alefyah was very white savior, you know, like it was enabling almost of certain behavior, but that was my approach. And that felt the safest because I was so scared of hurting people. It was a big awakening in a lot of ways. And it was pretty painful, like to see how much people were hurting and to also feel again like I was just like envisioning all of this impact that I was going to be able to have, and was like, wow, it's like a drop in the bucket, maybe.
Just awakening to how big these systems are over and over again. And then, oh, I'm learning the tools. I'm shifting gears. I know what it can look like. I have a picture in my head of what this can look like to be different. And then when you're really thrown into it, it's just so big.
It was so big. Yeah, the things that families were dealing with, like the suicidality. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was so much. And it was really, really hard. That school ended up shutting down in that same year. So it just kind of like stayed in this like space of crisis, and I never really got traction. I ended up getting a job at a high school on the West Bank and worked there for 4 years. And that was sort of my next chapter in continuing to work as a school counselor. But again, like I think I hit a similar place that I was in teaching of like, despite my best efforts, I feel like I'm not having the impact that I want to have. I could feel my burnout sort of cropping up. And then for someone with like a lot of empathy, have like just feeling like it's like hard for me to get out of bed. You know, like I am just having a hard time like motivating myself to do basic stuff. Like I just feel like full of lead, especially after the pandemic. I had to switch gears. that it was like at the point where it's like it's best for everyone if I go because I am having such a hard time. And I did one more year at a middle school here in New Orleans, but I think by the time I switched it was too late. It was just like the level of trauma, having students die and also experiencing all of this when like the world was, like having the pandemic and like, having the racial reckoning that we had in 2020. And I just remember watching that and also feeling so furious of like it has been a crisis, y'all. Like come on, like it has been a crisis. I had so much rage and sadness that had just like I had just sat in for a very long time that I burned myself out and had to step away. Yeah. So that was kind of a very short summary of the time that I had in schools. I will also say there was just so many beautiful times. Like I loved the teachers that I worked with. I loved my students so much. I loved the families that I worked with. Like they are incredible, phenomenal people. But I think that my anger of how systems failed my families and failed my students, and then how they were blamed, and like I felt like pushing a rock up a hill to try to like move the needle. It was just like this, it shouldn't feel like this. It's hard. I think it's like something that I've actually not really thought about in a long time because I stepped out of schools in June of 2023. So, and I feel like I kind of put all of this in a box and just started working on my private practice. So, yeah, I'm like bringing all those feelings back up and I'm like, I haven't talked about this in forever.
Yeah. What is the biggest feeling that, because I can see the heaviness in you, and it's almost like, and you didn't get to repair so many things over and over again, right?
I think the biggest feeling that's coming up, gosh, I think I have deep grief. I have deep grief about my students and all the things that all the things that I want for them. I'm so proud of them. Like I am. I'm so proud of them. And like I think working with high schoolers too, you get to know what happens after you work with them and see their story. I wanted everything for them. And I think life's just continued to be really hard for the ones who I've kept in touch with. They are trying to break their own cycles. And the way that our country is built just creates such a steep mountain for them to climb. And I think that that speaks to some of the systemic things that I was observing in schools as well that just like grated on my soul.
And you went in with such passion of, I'm going to make a difference. I can see this clearer than maybe other people who are not able to see that right now or don't have that clarity. I have the passion. I'm educating myself on how to do things differently with the trauma informed care. And then I'm stepping into it. And every time it's, whoa, the system is just so big. It's coming at them from every angle. And then they're being blamed for it on top of that. And then the powerlessness from you, it's like the same powerlessness that was you punching the wall in the bathroom. It's like it's coming up
Yeah.
again in
Yeah.
other iterations. Right now, okay, now I'm going to do it as a counselor. Okay, I can do it this way. Okay, now I'm going to do it in this environment. Now I'm going to educate myself and do all these resources and go back in. I just see you as this fighter who's like going back in the ring every
Yeah.
time, and you're getting that
Yeah.
boxer's injury right over and over again, and it's just so big.
Exactly. And I would like step out of the ring and go to like a continuing education, like go get EFT trained, go get EMDR trained, like go be certified in trauma focused CBT. Like I was like, I'm a registered play therapist. Like I have a lot of letters in my name because that was always what I did was like, I can figure it out if I just keep working harder.
Yes. And so much of our life that works. That strategy works. I work harder. I educate myself. I try harder.
Yeah.
I step into my introspection and my humility and educate myself, and then I go back into the ring. But these systems are just so big. How do you shift that fight knowing it? You said a lot of you was, I can make the impact, I can do this, and you're seeing that now as like white savior energy. Like, how has your fight shifted?
I think it's been really difficult. Like to shift out of that because I even felt like I didn't deserve to be successful. You know, it got down to that level of like I don't deserve to be able to make a living. I don't deserve to be successful. You know, private practice, there was a lot of parts of that about being a small business owner that was really challenging for me because it was like in some ways like I felt guilty. There was just a lot of that was coming up and showing up in my practice in really unhealthy ways. So I think my lane now, Alethea, is like I want to be in the position to use my expertise to support people at very low cost when I can. I also, you know, just with like the folks that I work with, I want a multicultural conversation to be happening in every session. Like Paul Guillory says that the best way to dismantle the hierarchy of power that exists between therapist and client is to like call out your own markers. And so like I tell all of my clients that I have a CPTSD diagnosis. I tell my clients that I have ADD. You know, I share like this is who I am. They all know that I grew up abroad. They know things about like how I identify, like, you know, gender wise and like my pronouns and like sexuality and like all of that
Can you
because
speak to why that is so important in the therapeutic relationship? Because, you know, traditionally, like that stereotypical mindset of you got to be this blank slate and you got to not self disclose anything, but there is so much value to exactly what you're saying. And I think it creates this equity in the room.
yeah, and I will say it's not my idea. You know, I'm taking what Paul Guillory said was really important, but I think that like the assumption for therapists is that they're white, they're male, you know, they're cis, they're not neurodiverse, right? And I think like shattering that is so critical. And I think also there's something about the vulnerability of just like sharing who you are. You know, there are a lot of ways that I pass just like in the world, in public, where it's like I don't want to pass in the therapeutic space. Like I
Mhm.
want to just let my folks know like where I am. Like there's a vulnerability in it. And honestly, every time I do it, it does not get easier. I'm shaking. I'm shaking telling them. And I like often forget markers and I have to go back and be like, oh yeah, I meant to tell you this. Sorry. You know?
Oh,
It is trauma informed as well to be transparent. You are trusting me with your treasure, like with your relationship, with your story. Like the least I can do is let you know who you're working with. And I also want them to know I might have some blind spots. I want you to know what they are from the jump. You know, I'm not coming to you as a blank slate. I'm coming to you as someone with complex PTSD. I'm going to be very protective of you. My Gen Z clients say that it's my beige flag. And I've had clients tell me, like, you got to pull it back. It's too much. But that's so important for them to be able to call it out because I think we've all had the experience of being in a therapist where it's like they are focusing on the thing that I don't want them to be focusing on right now because it's not the most important thing.
so I'm really hearing such a collaborative experience between you and the clients in that room. And the best thing you can do is tell them who you're working with. They're sharing so much, they're being so vulnerable. And we don't want to give this impression that we're some perfect beings that have done all this healing. We're all healing together. We're in this together.
And I think the other thing too, Alethea, is, and this is probably the most important thing, and I'm sorry for saving it for last, but I think I have a lot of unearned privilege. Folks may assume more competence of me because I'm a white woman who's been very educated and speaks in a certain way. And I want to do what I can to dismantle that.
Your differences are not transparent. Like me being brown, me being Muslim, like I don't have to disclose that. That's already in the room, and all the assumptions that go along with it. But what I'm hearing a lot of your story too, of your evolution, is first it's like, how can I impact this? I see the systems clearly. I'm gonna go in and change everything and save it, and just fighting and fighting and fighting and getting knocked down. And now it's like, okay, how can I adjust this with the amount of humility that you're showing too? I can be real in the room. I can make sure I have this multicultural conversation every single time, even when I shake.
Yeah. And I think too, the client is telling me a story, like just slowing them down. If they're really mad at like a grocery store clerk, right? What was the race of that person?
Looking at the system.
What did you notice about that person? What do you think was coming up for you? Wait, like, did they remind you of anybody? What
Mm,
was coming up for you? And I would want someone to do that for me,
yeah.
and just like, let's slow this down. Let's zoom out for a second. Let's really just make sure that we're understanding what's happening here. I think that's my lane now, is to offer that space for people. And like, yeah, is it driving kids to school anymore, or like trying to coordinate like food can deliveries? No, it's not that big. It's
That's
just
great.
small of like, let's slow this down. And I think that, a big mission of my work has been to help people just like get out of their head and into their body, because I think that like racism is dehumanizing, and it's perpetuated when we are unfeeling, when we're just like going and doing and running, and helping people to slow down and touch their feelings. Even if it's going to be a little bit painful to come out of that dissociation, like I think that's part of what's going to start to turn things in the right direction.
It's such a shift of I don't have to go at it in this huge way. I see how big this is. And part of the humility of understanding how big it is knowing that the solution is going to be slow and long and small, but it's consistent. Like I'm showing up with this every day. I'm not trying to run in and change something that's been here for decades. I know I don't have power, but I can show up and have this conversation every day. I can really listen to somebody's story and see the system at play within their story and ask them these questions to even highlight that. Well, yeah, and get them in their body, because that colonized mindset is us going in our heads and moving a million times an hour. And when we're in our bodies, we can all feel things and see things in a different way.
I think that a lot of like the rhetoric around white shame, like white guilt, to pull on Tatum's work, right, is that we have all this unknown privilege and can kind of go into a shame spiral about that. But I actually think that when that has come up with my clients, and it's also validating that, reminding them that this is actually, it is a mark of progress that they're seeing it, and then also like kind of nudging them to like what happens next. Because to pull on Menachem's work, right, in my grandmother's hands, like he does a beautiful job of making a great point that racism hurts everybody. What does that do to your body, to your white body, to live in a system that hurts people in these ways? What is that doing to your soul and your body? That's in your body, and it's been in your body for generations. This hurts you too.
And that feels so much better. Even as a person of color, it feels so much better for a white person to say it in that way. Like, this is hurting us all. It hurts me that I'm benefiting from this, or that I am turning a blind eye to it, or that this has been here forever, instead of, oh, I'm going to be this white ally. I'm going to be this person for you. You're suffering. It has such a different impact when you're seeing it that way.
Yeah, and so I will say that like there's part of my fight that's like for my soul as well. Like I have maybe some selfishness in it, I don't know, but like I want my soul to be intact as much as possible. And so that's like, let's acknowledge that like living in this, I rebuke this system because this system hurts my soul, hurts my body. And so like I try to also bring that into the work as well, when relevant, when like I see a client really grappling with white shame, because it comes up quite a bit.
And that's kind of how you've always progressed. It's hits you. And I like also how you're saying when the shame hits you, or that pull to be that savior hits you, that's not horrible. That's acknowledging that, okay, that means your awareness is there. You're recognizing.
You're out of dissociation, you feel it. Yeah.
And that's a start, and that's great. Now let's figure out what to go next. All right, beautiful story. I'm so honored that you're sharing your story with me. I didn't even realize the richness and the nuance of everything that you've been through. So I really, really appreciate you. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up? Any point that if you had to give some nuggets to somebody listening to this?
I think don't do this alone. Don't do this alone. Shame does not do well when it's in the light. So if you're feeling shame about this, like find a safe person to talk to about it and process through it. You don't have to be the person who creates trauma-informed schools across the United States to make a difference. It can start with you just feeling the pain, because you have to be able to like grieve this system that we're plugged into to be able to get to the meaning making part at the end of grief, right? And that gets you to this place of like agency and empowerment. But we don't get that if we don't feel the anger, if we don't feel the sadness, if we don't also feel the bargaining.
Can we slow down first and really feel it, really understand it, and then move forward and don't do it alone.
I think also like, have the humility that children model for us so beautifully when they're learning. It's okay that you don't know anything about this. There is no handbook, and just be open to feedback from people. Just like, be open to listening, be curious, be as curious as you can.
That's such a great point. We do it with kids all the time. Of course, you're not going to know this. You've only been on the planet for 10 years. So let me, but it's the same with adults. Of course, you don't know this. You haven't been confronted with this yet. There's no shame in that. You don't have to act like you have to had it figured out by now already.
No, be as curious and humble as you can, just like child's mind. Like, okay, give it to me. I want to learn. I want to grow. Like, let's go, Thank you so much, Alefyah. Like, I'm just so proud of all of your work, and thank you so much for your time and your questions. I appreciate you so much.
It's a wonderful conversation. Hopefully we'll have many more. So do you want to just give any attention to where people can find you, or any other kind of resources that you think would be helpful for people?
You can find me at my website, Alix, that's Alix, smithllc.com. And I have a lot of my favorite books and things posted there. And if there's something that I said that you're like, wait a minute, I want to slow that down with you, I want to talk to you more about that, like, please also feel free to reach out to me. You can contact me through my website, and my email is alix@alixsmithllc.com as well. So people can reach out to me there.
Wonderful. All right, Alix, take care.
Thank you, Alefyah.
Join the movement and keep the conversation going at deconstructingtherapy.com. And follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Deconstructing Therapy. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you are able to and would like to help sustain the podcast, you can find us at buymeacoffee.com/deconstructingtherapy to show your support. Thank you for listening.